Okay, it looks like we are live. Hello, everyone. I'm Elizabeth White, your soul purpose coach, helping you know yourself, live authentically, and create a deeply purposeful life. I'll be here every Wednesday, 11 a.m. EST. Today, we have Heather Wanninger here with us. Do you want to introduce yourself, Heather?
Well, good morning. Yeah, my name's Heather Wanninger. I am a photographer and coach to help other photographers grow their business. I'm a single mom with 3 boys living in Central Illinois and just learning to live my dream better and bigger every day.
Wonderful. I love it. I love that you're a photography coach. I find that so interesting. So interesting.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed that avenue because as creatives, so many times we get the creative side, but we don't understand the business side. And I was that way. And I spent almost 6 years in my business before even doing a cost of doing business. So I
Yeah.
like to be able to help other people that are in that boat and just feeling like the unknown or feeling guilt that they don't know. Like, hey, I'm the perfect one to help you because I didn't know either.
Yeah, because I feel like the creative energy and the business energy are typically seen as extremely different. So when the creatives try to get into business, it can it can be a little bumpy. So it's really cool that you do that.
Yeah, and what I found and what my students find is that it's actually really exciting when they get a little bit further into it. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
it's a powerful thing to know I can do both. I can live in both sides of the brain and do it really well.
yeah, that's awesome. So today we are talking about the last piece of the puzzle, forgiveness. Heather, why is this something that you wanted to talk about? What was coming up for you?
Yeah, you hear all the time, that to forgive, to be able to let go and release and move on.
Mhm.
And I had, in my 10 years of a relationship with my husband, which is now ex, we
Mhm.
were in court for 10 years. There was a lot of things that were drumming up my idea of wanting to hang on because I felt like forgiving would have been it he wasn't he didn't deserve to be forgiven, right?
Okay. Yeah.
These are all my own feelings and where I was at in it. But let me tell you, the forgiveness when I truly let go, my life got exponentially better.
Yeah. So tell me about what emotions come up with this like desire to hold on to something that you know. I guess were you aware that it wasn't serving you, or how did that work?
For a while, there wasn't any correlation to it. I didn't understand what I was, purposely holding on to was hurting me.
Yeah,
There was just a lot of hurt. I mean, in general, there was a lot of hurt. There was a lot of unknown. There was a lot of what could I have done better? All these feelings to try to
yeah.
figure out what I could have done. At some point, then it was okay. You hear those quotes, if you're um holding on to coal, if you're not forgiving someone, it's like holding on to coal and hoping that they get burnt, right? It's like it doesn't serve a purpose
Yeah.
that is going to help you. And so there was a point that I'm like, okay, I get to just forgive and move on. And I remember very clearly that moment when I felt like I spent a couple years in oh, I know I need to forgive. Felt more like a neat, like I have to kind
Yeah.
of feeling for a while.
Yeah.
And in that have to, it was maybe forgiving little pieces along the way. Over the years there
Mhm.
was forgiveness happening, but there were little pieces. And then
Yeah.
maybe I might take something back because then something else happened and that maybe, well, no, it's going to go back in my pocket right here because I feel validated to keep it. Right.
Yeah.
Didn't serve.
Yeah.
And when I truly did then let go, I'm like, oh my goodness, it was night and day.
Yeah. So how do you experience that when you feel like you should forgive somebody or like you need to forgive somebody? Um, how did you experience it? Because I know for me, there have been times where I feel like the people around me are just wanting me to forgive. And I'm trying to push myself towards it just because everybody else is saying, well, you should. How did
Mm,
you experience that though?
yeah. It's definitely a journey, like you're saying, it's a journey that you get to figure out the right timing and and your want for it because, I felt that too. Oh, I need to. And the more you do something out of, well, I have to, or feeling like it's out of obligation, it isn't going to come authentically and genuinely and really be released. And that's what I found for a few years when I was trying.
Yeah.
I know. If I forgive, everything's gonna be better. Just forgive him. I know. Right. So in
Yeah.
my head, it was just kind of like, yeah, I get it. And I don't want to, so it wasn't fruitful. It
Yeah.
wasn't effective then until it was my decision to really do it for the reasons that I wanted. And I was ready to be really open for it.
So in that time, of not wanting to forgive, but feeling like you should, um, what did you feel like it was doing for you to not forgive him?
I feel like I was trying to hold on to validation of, well, there's all of this stuff happened that I didn't like. But
Yeah.
if I hold on to these pieces, the forgiveness really felt like it was going to be a gift to him.
Uh-huh.
At the end of the day, it's the gift to ourselves. And
Yeah.
so I did not feel that in those early years of it. And so it was holding on. And I think without realizing it, it was a way to hold on to a story that allowed me to feel like a victim.
Mm.
And I didn't feel I have until I started discovering more about what I was doing and how I was showing up and everything just in life, I would never have classified myself as a victim.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm a warrior. We will turn, lemons into lemonade. Everything is going to be great.
Yeah.
But as I discovered more about what I was doing or the stories I was sharing, it was like, oh my goodness, it wasn't just, so let's say a friend broke your heart. She said
Mm.
something that was mean, right? How do we share that if we're talking to someone else? Or how are we telling ourselves that story? Because if it can be, oh my goodness, my best friend, we had plans to be able to go out for lunch. And then, this new guy that she was interested in called
Mhm.
her and now she didn't do this. And we can create a really big story around it. And in that, I was finding that I was doing that in my personal life. Like it was like, well, but
Okay.
these are all the things that happened to me, as opposed to if we just shrink the story about it's all us, it's all how we show up. Then
Mm.
it was if we change the story, then it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I had plans to go to lunch with a friend. She ended up making other plans. I chose to feel upset about this because I chose.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the emotions around I choose and I chose is so different than throwing it in the other way. And so that was a big shift for me was just realizing like even if something has happened to me, my choices on how I respond are very powerful. And so changing that around that all of a sudden it was like, oh, there's like not drama around what was
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
It was just, oh, this is what happened. Here's how I'm choosing to think or feel or move forward with that. That was a huge transition for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you were in that victim mindset and playing with the victim story. And you made a good point at the beginning saying that you couldn't even see that that's where you were and that's what was going on. And I feel like a lot of us are capable of falling into this mindset of victimhood. And when you start going through the story, and telling yourself that, they did this to me and this is their fault and I'm at their mercy and I can't do anything about it. And going on and on and on and on, you're just bring like encouraging that victimness towards yourself and you're validating to yourself, I am the victim here, woe is me, I have been taken advantage of, I've been hurt. And uh when you said something about shifting your perspective and the way that you speak as to not talking so much about them other than the facts, and then making your own decisions as to how you feel, how you think, what you're going to do. in the midst of, whatever issue, you know, disagreement, problem, whatever you want to call it, in the midst of it. And all of that is shifting that victim story, shifting that victim mindset into here are the facts, and accepting, my friend canceled on me for somebody else. I'm in acceptance of that. And this is what I'm going to choose to do now, or this is who I'm going to choose to be in this moment. So that's a huge, huge shift in your mindset and the way that you speak to yourself and the way that you view your life and things that happen in your life. So how do you feel that you were able to shift that? Because it's a really, really big shift.
It was. I actually worked with a coach, and she's in an organization. And so it was working through Clemmer that I
Yeah.
attended a workshop, and I'm like, oh, like it was very eye-opening to see, because I was oblivious to it. I'm like, I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I was a victim, but what you're saying about, being back in that cycle, it was so true. And so being able to shift it, it's like, okay, so great. Now I don't have lunch with my friend. What am I choosing to do? I'm choosing to take a power nap and enjoy myself.
Yeah.
I get to choose to go go catch up with someone that I hadn't seen. I'm going to go be able to have lunch with my son, right? There's
Yeah.
all kinds of things that we're doing with the choosing. And so it's very intentional. I mean, there are things that I would do that when I was early on, and even now, like if I feel like a situation I'm finding myself back into, woe is me, right? I'll
Mhm.
set reminders on my phone, multiple times a day
Yeah.
of reminding that I'm in choice, or having the worthiness things
I love
quoted
that.
or whatever, to be able to have that, to be able, and it's funny because one time I was doing it with, I had a week that I was setting an alarm every hour for something. And it wasn't with
Yeah.
the forgiveness piece. It was just about my worthiness and what I'm welcoming into my world.
Yeah.
And I had these things going off, and, it was, I'd say, I am abundant. I welcome, money. I am kind, all these different things. And it got to the point that my boys would hear the alarm and they're like, oh, there you go again. Hey, mom, you're awesome. I'm like, thank you. I received that.
Right?
so so I love that what they thought was so goofy, right? I mean, and I get it. If you haven't done
Yeah.
this stuff, it seems weird, right? Maybe, but I'm like, awesome. I'm telling myself this, and now my boys are pouring into me sarcastically. I'm still taking
Yeah.
it. I'm like, thank you very much. I appreciate that you see the hard work I'm doing for you as a mom, and that you
Yeah.
enjoy it. So things like that. Find whatever tips, tricks, tools can help you as we start a new way of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. And, with those reminders and your boys starting to realize, that's what was going on every time your phone went off,
Yes.
it it sounds like it would also shift the energy of you guys around each other, because if every hour they're knowing that there's this affirmation going to you of how amazing you are and how wonderful you are and how open you are to receive, then they're still in that energy. And then if they're joining in even sarcastically, they're helping you bring the energy in.
I know, and it was, and it went both ways, because then when they were in on it too, then I'd look at them like, man, you know what? You are such a great friend. I love the
Yeah.
smile that you bring to light, right? So it seemed, I mean, like anything that we do in life, until it becomes a regular thing, it can feel awkward and funny. And so
Mhm.
if showing love, if showing forgiveness in a way of, being very intentional with your words, maybe that's something that's not common. Maybe you didn't grow up with that. So
Yeah.
that can feel weird to even share affection with friends, or even your family, right?
Mhm.
So if it needs to take something goofy and silly to get there, great. I mean, I remember even a couple years ago when I was changing my language. Well, how can I support you? Right? When I'm talking to friends. As
Yeah.
I would say support, it just felt weird to me. It felt unnatural.
Yeah.
But now it is so common, so natural for me to ask that, or send text messages to friends. Hey, I just want to tell you, I see you. I see you. I see all the things that you're dealing with your family. And I
Mhm.
admire how you're showing up and still giving everything that you've got, even on days when you feel like you don't have it. I mean, I just want to tell you, I see you. I love you. And I'm thankful that you're in my circle. Right.
Yeah.
That is powerful. And when we can turn that into ourselves, when we're talking about forgiveness, like that's the kind of gift we give to ourselves when we can forgive, is those kinds of gifts when we share our words with other people.
Yeah, yeah, and practicing with other people, I think is a great idea because you get to also I mean, there's a part where you're giving, to them, um, but you also get to witness their receiving, and you get to create a deeper bond with somebody that you love or that you want to create a deeper bond with, and it's a really beautiful thing because you're practicing with other people, but you're like I said, like but you're also giving it, so you're just sending it out.
Yeah.
I love that idea. And it also puts you, I feel like, in greater responsibility. So for me, if I were to do something like that, which I have similar things that I do, but I schedule them in my calendar. And so, like, once a week, I'm expected to do this. Once a week, I'm expected to do this. And so, when I'm going through, at the end of the week, making sure I have everything checked off, or throughout the week, checking things off, it's in there where it's like, okay, I'm going to go send this person a message, and it's literally just, a nice message of, hey, I think you're amazing, that type of thing.
Yes. Yeah. And I think what's so powerful, what I've seen too, is that acting on it when someone comes right to your mind, right?
Yes.
And sharing something, because for the longest time, I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll see what they're doing later. Or often then I just wouldn't even communicate with them, right? But when I have reached out immediately,
Uh-huh.
the timing is not coincidence that they came to
Yeah.
my mind. And the responses are powerful in return. Many have brought tears to my eyes, knowing, as they shared, you have no idea the timing and how much I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
And sometimes they share more about why, right? But it's like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, that's so cool. I read a book called
Yeah.
God Winks. It's not a coincidence.
Uh-huh.
There's a reason they're placed on your heart.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Completely. That's beautiful. So, I have a question going back to the shift in this victim mindset,
Yeah.
um, and the changing of your words. Did you feel triggered at all while you were making that shift? Because I know for me personally, when I've made that shift, I was almost resistant to the words, and then even when I became non-resistant to the change in the words, I would still sometimes have an emotional reaction
Mhm.
to, whatever, situation was in front of me. Did you experience that as well, or how did you move through that?
Oh yeah, no, I had my heels in the sand. I was digging them in. I'm like, no, they are not deserving of this. So it was. And honestly, until you started talking about it, I'd forgotten about that because it's so far removed now.
Yeah,
But you're right. I totally did. I'm like, and it felt more out of obedience, that I was okay, so I'm gonna have to forgive. All right, I forgive this. But the beauty in all of this is that when we practice it in all kinds of ways, with
yeah,
all kinds of people in all kinds of situations, it makes it easier for that one that you might be digging your heels in the ground a little bit more on. And
yeah,
so I found that I would practice and do these things with small minor things,
uh-huh,
someone showed up late. Well, sometimes that would be me, that I was like, okay, I'm forgiving in that, or,
yeah,
something around small pieces that really aren't a big deal, but recognizing it. Be like, you know what? It's all right. Here's the choices that I'm making. I'm choosing to forgive. No big deal.
yeah,
The more I would practice in other areas and arenas, it made it easier to start seeing, like, almost like gripping a rope and
yeah,
holding on tight, but slowly starting to feel those fingers loosening up a little bit.
yeah,
And it was the easiest thing to do, to forgive, and it was a very long journey to get there for me.
yeah,
And so I equate it to, like a light switch. The light switch, if
yes,
you know exactly where it is, right? You turn that on, the entire room is bright. If
mm,
I'm in a massive warehouse and I don't know where the light switch is, I'm fumbling around. I'm in the dark for a long time.
yeah,
I felt in the journey of forgiveness, I was in that warehouse just fumbling,
yeah,
tripping over, trying to figure something out. Okay, I feel like I'm forgiving. Oh, but now I feel like I've really kind of taken another piece back, right? And then I finally found the light switch. And when I did, it was instantaneous full 100% release and
Yeah.
forgiveness. And it
Yeah.
was an experience that I have never experienced in my life, where it was an exercise that we were doing at a Clemmer conference. And
Mhm.
I remember just saying, like, I got up and I'm like, I'm sobbing. Like, I'm like, I don't even know where that, like, it's all just coming from. And I start crying. I'm like, I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm done feeling tired. I'm done
Yeah.
with, hanging on to something that's hurting me. I'm done. And as we did that exercise, it felt like I had this straitjacket that was on me. I
Mhm.
felt this physical, like, release. And never in my life have I experienced like that. I'm like, okay, this is kind of like, it seemed so crazy to me. But
Yeah.
there was this physical thing. I felt like I was ripped off. I felt like the energy in the room had shifted. And I sobbed like a baby around these people that I had met 24 hours ago, and didn't matter. Like, I was in my own world, raw, real. I'm done. And I had people tell me the next morning when we met for breakfast, they're like, you're different. They're like, I mean,
Wow.
and it gives me chills now
Yeah. I've got
because
chills.
I'm like, how, how amazing that when you get to that point and truly are ready to let go,
Uh-huh.
you get to forgive. And I have not looked back. The feelings, emotions around those situations, those people, all
Mhm.
that, it's gone. It's completely gone. Even as things kind of want to ramp up in areas as it's coming my way, I'm like,
Mhm.
nope. I can just see it for what it is and move through it and let it go. Acknowledge it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so gosh, the way this email I received, it's making me feel this way. You know what? I understand that that's what's happening, and there's no need to have any more energy around this. I see it, I receive it, I'll respond, I let go. Right? It's
Yeah.
just the things are the feelings come through, but they get to go through. I'm
Yeah.
not clinging on to them anymore. And
Yeah.
it's so amazing.
Yeah, and I think that that clinging onto them is the addiction from the victim mindset. In the victim mindset, we get really
Mm.
addicted to the chaos, the emotions. Yeah, the chaos and the emotions. It's almost like we get so used to it. That's where we're comfortable. So we don't want to let go. Um, but that instantaneous thing with forgiveness, I definitely experience it that way as well. And I've talked to some other people who experience it as just like a light switch. It's just all of a sudden it's there.
Yeah.
And I really feel like we don't forgive until we're really ready to forgive.
Mhm.
And I feel like sometimes that takes time because there's things that we're learning in it.
Yeah.
And things that we're learning how to heal in it and how to release and how to let go. And yeah, I find that absolutely incredible that you said that you look different, you
Yeah.
know, that your whole demeanor and appearance was different. It was like you literally lost, this heaviness from you in being able to forgive.
Yeah. I could feel it. It was really surprising to hear multiple people tell me
Yeah.
that they saw it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool.
And I think, one thing that I do remember, like, when you're talking about feelings and emotions, after that happened, and then I'm like, "Okay, great, and I've forgiven."
Uh-huh.
One thing that I got to work through to make sure that I didn't hang on to something else, which I love that you point out, like, it's the addiction, which I hadn't considered that being a piece,
Mhm.
but yeah, you're right, it's what we know. After all that and feeling so good and knowing that I've forgiven, there was for a short period of guilt that I couldn't
Mm.
forgive sooner, because I thought, "What, this is so amazing to be on this side.
Yeah.
Why didn't I forgive 8 years ago? Why couldn't I?" And if I was not really aware of my feelings, my emotions, and really stopping and thinking about it, that I think I could have gone down another deep rabbit hole, right? I was able to see it and then move on, but it did. It had me feeling like, man, this was so easy,
Mm.
right? 8 years in or whatever it was. Why couldn't I have done it at year 2? Look at all the years, and then thinking about what did I miss? Were there other opportunities that I could have had? And I got to just release that, because like what you said, there are lessons learned in all of it. There are so many great things that came from the negative in my life
Yeah.
that has created a business, a life, the things that I get to do with my boys, all of those things, it stemmed from the negative. So it's like, you know what? And be I'm thankful where I am now, and I get to recognize and acknowledge the beauty in all of that brokenness of
Mm,
those years. And it's okay, right?
yeah.
Wherever we are on the path, it's where we're meant to be. I'm excited that I'm on the other side of that forgiveness. And now moving forward, when things happen in any other instance of life, with any relationships, I get to work through it quicker. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn, even continue to learn, right? It's a never-ending process. And it's exciting to think that we always get to grow and be
Mhm.
bigger, better, stronger, more capable, more giving, more generous, all those things.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I feel like you pointed out the victim mindset shift and how that happened just for you and looking back on your life. It sounds like with this forgiveness that and the shift in your mindset that you then were able to look back on other, like bad things or challenging events or whatever it was and see how you created something really wonderful, really beautiful, really amazing, something you truly, truly love out of what initially was perceived as bad or painful or you didn't want it. Um, and that's big. I feel like that's one of the most I guess that's like one of the biggest things that helps people be able to move through challenges. If they're able to, look at a situation, admit where they are with it, what it is, all of that, and then say, okay, how can I use this? What can I do with it? What are the possibilities and what's required of me to be able to get to that greater possibility from this situation? It's a really, really wonderful tool to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think, in big or small things, the more you practice it,
Yeah.
the easier it is to get there. There was a situation in business and I'm like, oh my goodness, I could have totally taken the victim route because one thing after another was not connecting and there were issues and there was oh my goodness. I'm like, and could have been like, okay, this is not what I'm supposed to do. I tried something new in business. No, forget it, and want to go back. But I'm like, no, looked at him like, okay, so obviously this didn't work. What do I get to put in place in my systems to make sure that it's much more
Mm,
it's smoother and easier, the next go round? And so, the more you practice it, and it's everywhere, not just
yeah.
relationships, it's in everything. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Just look at it as feedback as to what's going on, what's, best for you, what's in alignment for you, all of those things. And, feedback isn't, necessarily criticism from, whatever's happening on outside of you, but it's just letting you know, hey, this isn't working. Hey, this isn't really in alignment with you. That's why you're feeling so upset all the time when you're around this person, or,
yeah, yeah. And you point out like feedback, because that's the thing. Feedback is not criticism, but boy, I really would take it that way, right? I mean, I would view it as negative. And if there was anything that wasn't all positive, okay,
uh-huh.
that's bad. Feedback, yeah, it's neutral. You get to choose what you want to do moving forward with it. But that was a practice and a work in itself of
Yeah.
accepting it as neutral. Just figure out what you want to do with that information.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that perception shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, talking about the times when you're in the middle of shifting your perspective and you are still getting somewhat triggered. What I found super helpful is that I I try to ask myself, what is this doing for me? So usually we're trying to keep ourselves safe in some way, shape, or form. That's usually what it comes down to. But um, my big thing recently has been trying to not look so much at the situation at hand and analyze that, but rather allow myself to consider where I picked up this idea that this is wrong or this is bad, or Maybe it's something where I'm thinking, I can't do this. Okay, so where did I get the idea that I can't do something? Why would I think that? And that's the way that I have been able to shift things more and look at what's happening in my life more as feedback rather than as criticism. Because for me, I'm looking at it as, okay, so I have, if I'm triggered by it, I obviously have something in me before that could be triggered. So where is this really coming from? This isn't a situation where it's fully about he said this, she said this, and they're being mean to me or whatever it is. It's more about, why am I triggered? What's inside of me that's not allowing me to shift my perspective, that's not allowing me to forgive the situation, forgive the people that are involved, and realize I do have a choice in the matter.
Yeah. I love that idea as far as thinking about that. And because you're right. If it's triggered, there's already something there.
Yeah.
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 And I think it takes some of the emotion out of the actual instance that what you're dealing with, right? Because now the emotion removed. Now we're just playing detective.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can make that fun.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not so much the blame game.
Yeah.
It lets me release the judgment and the blame of, okay, so who's really at fault for all of this type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would be your big piece of advice for somebody who wants to forgive but is having trouble allowing themselves to get there?
Mm. Yeah. For me, it was being around the people that knew how to do this. I mean, here
Mm,
you're an expert in these pieces, right? So
mm,
finding someone that they feel a connection with to talk through, to work through,
yeah.
and it helps bring that awareness around it. Because in conversations, I didn't realize how often I was utilizing victim
Oh yeah.
thinking mentality. I'm like, what? If anyone would have ever asked me, like, no, I'm not a victim, man. I'm the warrior. Look at all that I've come through. I've risen from the ashes.
Yeah.
Oh, but I like to hang on to that victim mentality. And so having that continual interaction, I mean, that was huge for me. Every week getting on a call, just talking. And as I talked, then it would be like, pause. Okay, so here's what I've heard you say, and
Hmm.
bringing that awareness to it. Cause you don't know what you don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I told you I felt like I was not a victim, and I really was with how I was changing things. So shifting to that mentality, wanting to forgive, doing all
Yeah.
those things, finding someone that can support you in that and helping understand and walking the path with you. For me, it was the game changer of having someone to walk it with me.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it was my choice and my willing to release it, right?
Absolutely.
It's not on anybody else. Having someone with me though made the journey a lot more aware, easier. And kind of say easier because I'm like, it's a
Yeah.
long journey, but it can be faster when you have someone else walking you with it.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. And my perspective on that is that, how they say that you become like the people that you spend the most time
Mm,
around.
yes.
Well, if you really want to forgive and you're having trouble forgiving, you have to be around people who know how to forgive and are okay with forgiving and who have forgiven, um, in significant ways, because they not only have the knowledge and the experience in it, but just being around them, they have the vibration of forgiveness. And
Mhm.
if we're talking energetically, you don't even have to tell them necessarily that you're working on forgiveness if it's that deep that you don't feel comfortable just being around it. And you can even do that with at least I'm on some group calls that are based in some of the stuff, and I don't even have to talk sometimes to receive from these calls, because I'm just listening to people talk about these topics that are deeply resonant for me in that moment. And I'm gaining from listening, and I'm gaining from feeling into their vibration of what they're moving through. And, it's really, I totally agree. I totally agree with the, surround yourself with that you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, be conscientious about those that are in your closest circle that obviously are not leaving, that may not be in that space for you. So if depending on what you're wanting to forgive, still to
Mhm.
this day, I have people in my circle for the larger, big things in my life where I've forgiven some of my favorite people. They are hanging on to it for me. Like
Yeah.
they are still angry for me. They are in this feeling still. And I'm like, and I will read their messages, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm like, it's all good. Like I'm past it. It's okay. They're like, yes, but they're looking for the validation. They're looking for the anger and all that. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
But I get to just, let that in one ear and out the other. I'm not hanging in that. So even if that circle has some people in there that, because they
Yeah.
love you fiercely. And so they kind of hold on to it for you sometimes.
Yeah.
That's okay. I mean, but I'm very clear with them, like, I'm over it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I've moved on. So
Yeah. That's a really good point, because I have realized that I have to be very conscious of who I talk to about different things, because I know that when people are responding with things like, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Oh, like, oh, they're so horrible. I can't believe that happened to you." It actually antagonizes the emotion, and it makes it like hold on tighter, and I hold on tighter to it, like
mhm.
the validation, like you were saying, like I'm validated to keep this and all of that. So yeah, being conscious of who you're talking to, especially when you are experiencing some strong emotions, in the forgiveness process, and making sure that you're talking to people that are fully supportive of forgiveness, and and also of you releasing whatever emotions you're experiencing through that.
Yeah. And I think too that showed when those things were coming, those conversations were happening about things that when I didn't have the emotions to go with it to want to like latch onto it and be like, yep, yep. Like
Mhm.
I realized I'm like, okay, like I really am done. And it
Yeah,
was a really cool recognition. Like I've wanted to forgive for so long. I knew that there was beauty on the other side of forgiveness.
yeah.
To be there and truly see it, even as conversation come up, like, oh yeah, they hate it for me, right? I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? It's all good. I love my life, the blessings that I have that have come from all of it. I
Mhm,
wouldn't want to be where I was. And years ago, I was holding on tight to things that were not serving me just
mhm.
because it's what I knew and what was comfortable. And I say comfortable, and it wasn't even comfortable. It wasn't a relationship that made me feel beautiful, worthy, and loved and
Mm,
supported and all those things, right? But it's what I knew. And
yeah,
so when we can release some of that is just time, like you said, having time and distance from that situation. Now I look back, I'm like, man, what a blessing. I love where my life is. I love the relationship I have with my boys, all these things and it wasn't all roses coming through it. I mean,
yeah,
we were doing this, as a family trying to figure things out. And now I'm in the place that I'm meant to be today. And I'm really excited to see where I'm at in a year from now and 5 years from now in all aspects of life because I know it's just getting better.
yes, 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 and that comes from that mindset shift of when you experience what you consider to be a challenge in your life.
Yeah.
So
And now it's easy to look at it differently.
yeah, yeah, because you've practiced.
Yes. Yes. Practice, practice, practice. I know.
Yes.
It's kind of like, having a coach and having someone to support you through it is really great. I think about in high school when Coach Martin and Coach Crop, they were our basketball coaches.
Yeah.
And man, I could curse them during the season. And then I got to college and not in near as good a shape and life, things are changing. I'm like, man, where were they? Right. It's like sometimes we don't realize in the coaching aspect, like, hey, there's really good that's coming from it. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
they made us practice and sometimes I didn't appreciate in the moment. I can look back and be like, yeah, that was really good. Same thing in life. We just get to keep practicing.
Yeah, yeah, and it really is those small things that build on each other. Like, we don't need this grand, huge, elaborate event or thing that we do. Like, we don't need to spend a day to try to forgive somebody. It comes in those little moments and us adding up those little moments, and they stack on top of each other, and eventually they're so high that you're at the door and you can go ahead and forgive.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And mine started with gratitude, spending just a couple minutes every day. And
Yeah,
it wasn't always even writing it down. It was maybe I was dropping the kids off to school. Gosh, I am grateful that we have a roof over our head. I am grateful that all 3 boys are healthy and going to school. I
yeah,
am grateful that. And the more that happened, it was like, what do I have to complain about? Right? Are there things that are not going well in my life? Sure. But man, when we focus on the good, we're just going to attract more of it. Talk about the energy,
oh yeah,
right? I'm just attracting and bringing in more good and more abundance. So it really is. It doesn't have to be a lot. I think, I don't know about you, but I know sometimes I like to take the hard road. I like to work really hard at something. I like to make things so complicated before I get back to something simple. And I'm like, this feels good. This is easy. And I mean, my
yeah,
coach tells me all the time that she's like, does it have to be hard? And I'm like, yes, not. But it felt like I needed to climb a mountain. I needed to be in a battle. I needed to have war, scars and all these things. And it was difficult. If things are hard, we're going about it the wrong way. When I can get into a flow of just ease and doing what feels natural to me and,
yeah,
all these things, like everything happens so much easier. And so sometimes, like, even with forgiveness, right?
yeah,
Oh, I got to plow through. Nope. You know what? I just found that light switch. That's all it
yep,
was.
yep. All it's taken is practice,
Yeah.
taking, a shift in your mindset, whether it's thinking about situations differently or um, regularly remembering all of the things in your life that are wonderful or all of the aspects of you that are wonderful. I heard recently on a video, they were talking about one of the most influential questions to ask somebody who really, really doesn't know what to do about a situation and is struggling really, really hard with it, and you don't know what to say. Is to ask them, what are you proud of so far? Because if they can recognize something, even the teeniest, tiniest thing, that they're proud of so far, even if they don't know what to do about it, it starts to shift how they're thinking about the situation. And what I've noticed is that that shift in the way that you're thinking about the situation opens your brain up to noticing where the opportunities are to fully shift how the situation turns out. And
Mm.
you've got to be able to allow yourself to make those steps to I am shifting. It might not happen overnight, but I am in the process of shifting. And then you start to see, oh, I could do that. Oh, you know
Yeah.
what? Maybe with this, horrible thing that I see as super painful, I can actually use that to propel me into dot dot dot.
Yes. Yeah. And I think just look one step ahead, the analogy of like if you're in a car and you're going across country, right?
Uh-huh.
We don't get to see the whole road, the whole from East Coast to West
Mhm.
Coast. We're literally, our lights are lighting the path just a little bit ahead.
Yeah.
You only get to figure out what's that next step. And I love that you talk about what are you most proud of?
Yeah.
Because that is so important for us to like recognize the things that we've done. When we have a big goal, we're wanting to go from the East Coast to the West Coast. And we're
Mhm.
like, that is a long, daunting way. It can feel like it's insurmountable. But when you take bite-sized nuggets, one bite at a time, right? Eating the
Mhm.
elephant one bite at a time, then we get to celebrate those things. And so I actually have, so when I'm doing things, because our endorphins like it. So here's my little,
Oh.
because when I'm at my computer and I'm working on things and I know
Yeah.
I have this project that's going to take 10,000 steps.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, okay, got one done. All right, hurry up, get to the next one, get the next one. But it's like,
Yeah.
you know what? We're already doing things that are good. Stop, ring the door, ring the bell, and celebrate. Like
I
just that quick.
love that.
So I have one on both of my desks. This is my like Zoom desk office, and then I've got my real office. And so I have one at each of my desks. And when I accomplish something off my list, great. All right, moving on, because that is triggering the endorphins. It's like, hey, that felt good. I accomplished. I'm celebrating. Let's do more. I want more of that.
That is such a good idea because I have actually been unsure of how celebrating those little things happens for me. And I haven't been able to find one that truly resonates with me. So I feel like I might need to get myself a bell.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's well, and I think because when I would think celebrations, it would be, well, I think big, right? I'm like, okay, I'm taking my boys on a trip, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't get to celebrate that way on a daily basis when we're trying to accomplish things on
Yeah.
our task list. So this is something that it's quick and simple, right? It's just
Yeah.
reinforcing all the good and the accomplishments that we're doing.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Okay. Do you have anything else for us?
I don't think so. I've enjoyed chatting with you,
Yeah,
Elizabeth.
same here. Same here. It's been super insightful.
I'm glad. I'm glad. And I think for anyone that's listening, just regardless of where you're at, embrace where you're at currently and just look to take one step. That's it. I spent many years, honestly, the first couple of years, I wasn't even taking steps. It didn't feel like
Yeah.
all of my energy was getting my kids to school, and I was coming home and I was just depressed and sleeping in bed. Like
Mm,
I couldn't function.
yeah.
But I found ways to take one step, that one action every single day to feel good. And over time, your life is just going to get so much better.
Yeah. Yes. I love it. So where can people find you if they want to get in contact with you?
Yeah. So my website is sweetlemonadephotography.com. That's got information for photography and coaching. And, if anyone just wants to chat or feel like, hey, talk more about this forgiveness, I'm certainly happy to chat with anybody. I mean, that's the beauty of getting to, I don't know, other side, maybe, like we're always growing, right? So it's like
Yeah.
if I can be somewhere and someone's resonating and being like, gosh, they're a little bit ahead. She's a little bit tall up higher on the mountaintop, right? Love to chat. Happy to chat. So that's my
Yeah.
website. I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well. Those are the two places that I'm most active, but would certainly love to be able to support and help others in this journey, because I know how much more joy and abundance and just feeling me
Mm,
and getting my bubble back. My mom told me that once. She's like, Heather, it's so great to see. She's like, because you lost your bubble for a
huh.
while.
Yeah.
And she said, it's so great to see that back. Like you've got your spark back.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, if I just know how great it is to be in that spark life living,
Mm,
and if there's anything I can do to help and support other people, would love to.
yeah. Yes, and Heather runs amazing events and trips. So if
Oh,
anybody, even if you're not a photographer, she says that you are allowed to join. So if you're interested, where's your next trip to?
oh yes. See, you saw how I light up. I'm like, yes, this is what we do. I love to travel, you guys. I've got a trip in September we're going to Morocco. And it
Mm,
is an 11-day trip. It is going to be so amazing. We're sleeping out under the stars of the Sahara Desert. We're going to Chefchaouen, which is like the magical blue city. Like it is eye candy all over the place. And we're hitting a different city every day. So
sounds
super excited. I
amazing.
know. I know. And then I just organized a trip to Costa Rica for next February. And that
Oh,
one, it
neat.
is some bite-sized education for photographers at breakfast and fireside chats at night. And then it's just a chance to relax and enjoy. So that's where so many people are like, well, do I have to be a photographer? I'm like, not really. Well, just come along, come join us. So we've
Yeah.
got a private chef that's coming in to do all our meals. We have massage therapists coming to the house. This is kind of like a bougie
Yeah.
fun one, right? We're minutes
Yeah.
from the beach. We can walk to the beach. We can do surf lessons. We're going to a monkey island to go play with the monkeys. I
Oh my
mean,
goodness. That sounds
how
like so much
fun.
fun.
It really is. So yes, if anyone's in the travel space, I mean, I think at some point I'll probably be doing like a travel like adventure page of something or a group,
Yeah.
because I just love it. And I'm finding that it's not just photographers that are wanting to join. So
Mhm.
we're having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's so good to have you on here. So good to talk to you, get to know you better. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Have a good day, Elizabeth.
You too. I'll talk to you later.